Before we get into a pre-combine 2025 NFL mock draft, we will have coverage for you from this year's NFL Combine. A bunch of different hosts here at Chat Sports, including myself, Rooster Chris, and more. We'll have all the stuff you could ever want, updates on the NFL, player interviews, and a whole lot more. Hit that sub button if you haven't already for more free NFL draft coverage. Hit it right now. Let's go to number one, and we'll try to change the picks as we always do. So no quarterback this time. And if they don't go quarterback, I do wonder if Tennessee's higher on Abdul Carter. There is uncertainty around both Arden Key and Harold Landry. Carter number one, and we'll stick with the non-quarterback theme here at the front. Travis Hunter goes number 2 overall. I'll have a very combine-heavy slant on today's video for obvious reasons. I wouldn't read very much into Hunter being listed as a cornerback for the combine. They're going to put him at one position. He's probably going to do both if he works out in tests. I don't think anything actually changes there. So then number 3, the Giants have to get a quarterback. And we'll see if Cam Ward throws at the combine. I don't know if that matters as much as I think people wanted to see him throw, but I don't know how much it's going to really impact his stock, positive or negative if he throws or does not throw. Giants are desperate, though, for a quarterback. Cam Ward's gunslinging nature offers some positives and negatives, but it's an obvious need. Probably the biggest thing for Will Campbell is, what is the exact arm measurement going to check in? Fair or not, NFL teams have thresholds. They like 34 and above. They can live with 33. Very rarely do you see an NFL tackle. There are some, but very rarely do you see one at sub 33-inch arms. That's the concern for Will Campbell. But as an offensive lineman, I think he's the best lineman in the class. Is it a tackle, guard, or I think he's very smart and could probably play center too. I love the fit of Mason Graham. Also, probably doesn't have the best length. I think he'll test pretty well, though. With Trent Baalke out, the Jags can now take Michigan players, and they happen to need a defensive tackle pretty badly. Again, we'll see if Sanders throws. My guess is he's going to try to add some water weight. He played like sub 200. That's pretty light for a quarterback. He'll probably want to get up to like 215, or at least as close to it as possible, and then probably won't throw, and then we'll throw it as. That's my early prediction for Shedeur Sanders. I think he fits actually really well in a Chip Kelly offense. I think there are concerns about him. He is not an overwhelmingly physically gifted quarterback, but as a distributor, so to speak, a point guard style at quarterback, I think it actually meshes really well with what Chip Kelly looks for in his current version of his offense. Fair or not, the interviews will matter a lot for all the QBs, and I think that's especially true for Shedeur given the overwhelming presence of his dad. So will a quarterback end up going number 1 in this year's draft? Whether it's the Titans, a trade down, or what? Let me know at the pinned comment of today's show. Y for yes, N for no. Will a QB go number 1 in this year's draft? Number 7, Tyler Warren. I think he's going to put up some really good numbers. He kind of runs. Baby Gronk comps are not fair. That's just not how it works. He kind of runs a bit like Gronk, though, and not like the baby Gronk that no one likes, like the actual young Gronk. Tyler Warren runs a little bit like Gronk, where it's kind of like almost awkward at times, but it works, and he's a great athlete too. Tetairoa McMillan, number 8 to the Panthers. If he can run in like the low 4.5s or even crack 4.5, I think that's ideal for him. He's not going to be the same burner other guys in this class are going to be, but that size, height, weight, speed combination, if it's like 4.51, it's really intriguing for a Panthers team that still wants to try to make Bryce Young work out. Adding more talent is not a bad thing. Very curious to see how Jalon Walker tests. I think it's going to be really good. I just want to see how he's deployed and really what he has to say about edge versus linebacker, too. I think he's going to be one of the more intriguing interviews player-wise. Saints, as they begin kind of a rebuild, they should be doing, adding a chess piece to build their defense around long-term, I think is a really intriguing idea. Ashton Genty, he's going to get up there and say he wants to be a Cowboy because he said like every time he's asked about it. But boy, I'm curious how the Bears feel about DeAndre Swift. Because there's the Lions connection, but also they moved on from him. I wonder how that actually fits now with Ben Johnson, and if they want to add a Jahmyr Gibbs, not style, but get that early round pick like Jahmyr Gibbs was, does make sense to me. Number 11, Armand Membu. I think he's a tackle. I get some think he maybe ends up being a guard. That's whatever. He is short. I think he fits really well with Kyle Shanahan, and he could be a day one right tackle, which the Niners need pretty badly. I'm a big fan of that player fit combination. Now, I'm probably higher than I guess consensus right now on Luther Burden. I expect him to test really well, and then we're kind of right back going of, wow, he's faster than Tetairoa McMillan, even though we knew that, but it's the combine, so we kind of sometimes have a tendency to count things twice. But I think he's going to test really well, and I think his shiftiness plays in the NFL. Malachi Starks, there's a couple guys this year's class that I had high hopes for, and they just weren't as good this past season. I think Malachi Starks fits that mold. I want to see him test well, prove he can, be that single high for 60. I think he can be. Fills a Javon Holland and Jordan Poyer both being free agents need in Miami. And then Will Johnson also wasn't as good this year. And there are questions about his speed, and the medicals matter here too. He missed some time this past season. Corner's a stopwatch position because, as it turns out, if you're slow, the opposing receiver runs right by you, and that's a bad thing. I don't think Johnson's slow, but I think there are just some questions of, is he, just how fast is he truly? I also expect to see Colts in a corner, by the way. I also expect Walter Nolan to really impress at the Combine. This is a very physically gifted player who was inconsistent at Ole Miss. You don't have to worry about inconsistencies in your testing. He's just going to pop off there. With uncertain futures for Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata, I think Falcons could actually look at the DT spot. And as a pass rushing defensive lineman, that still helps them out pretty good. He's a classic 3 technique. Now, if you want a rookie jersey from last year's class, or if you want to wait and get one from this year's class, just head over to chatsports.com/NFL jersey. All the players are available, teams, etc. Get yours today. A variety of colors and styles, throwbacks. Whatever you're looking for, Fanatics has you covered. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/NFL jersey. Cardinals get a pass rusher, which they need. Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Didn't have the year I wanted. Injuries were a factor there. This is another freaky tester who's going to be a big guy and is going to be very, very athletically gifted, just like Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. He goes 17 to the Bengals. Pass rush beyond Henderson is a big question mark there. Stewart's physical gifts are remarkably impressive, and he's going to check in somewhere in the ballpark of 6'5", 280, and I think there's a chance he runs sub 4.6, which is genuinely unbelievable. We're talking Devion Clowney, Keon White-esque athletes here. I think he's going to really impress. It's just, you got to figure out, okay, why did you never more than a sack and a half in a season? How was that possible? Kelvin Banks out of Texas to Seattle. They don't normally invest highly in guards, but I think Banks is actually better at tackle. Some of the concerns I have, especially in terms of run blocking, I actually think he get amplified at guard, and I think they stay mitigated at tackle. The Bucs take Mike Green, the edge rusher here, out of Marshall. Had a fantastic year for the Thundering Herd. He will have to answer questions, though, about what led to his dismissal at Virginia. Not a lot of actually credible information out there at this time. I suspect we'll get more whispers and news as it comes out at the Combine. That'll be something every team that meets with him asks about, because they want to figure out what happened and why. Number 20, Colston Loveland. I was going to put him to the Colts earlier. Then I couldn't find a place for Will Johnson, so I had to adjust. I think he's going to test really well. He's a freaky athlete. I don't love him as a run blocker, but as that joker for the Denver Broncos, I think it makes so much sense. Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka here. I think the wide receiver 2 spot is up for grabs. I don't think it's a lock. It ends up going to Luther Burden. So if Egbuka can test fast, it's a really good fit. And I think Pittsburgh is so desperate for a receiver, they might trade for one and draft one too. Speaking of freaky testers, just you guys wait to see what Kenneth Grant does. He is going to put on a show. I am so excited to see him test. He's listed at 6'3", 342. I think he's going to break sub 5 in the Combine. Like the 40-yard dash. I think there's going to be Jordan Davis-esque testing, which at his size makes it Travis Jones-esque testing, and that's a really, really good thing. I think the traits are so impactful. The size is so interesting. The speed combination. And the Chargers taking the Michigan man to be a nose guard makes a lot of sense, too. What player are you most excited to see at the NFL Combine this year? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. All right, Packers get Matthew Golden here. I think that they are in need of a dude wide receiver. Maybe I kind of got an early tentative Calvin Ridley-esque comp here for Matthew Golden. I think could fit quite well. I waffle between Amarian Hampton and Caleb Johnson here. I do want to see how both those guys tests, because they're both very quality RB2 candidates behind Genty this year. I almost want to see who tests better, or if they end up testing quite similarly there. And I am curious to see if Caleb Johnson can be a sub 4.5 guy, if he can be a 4.49 guy. If that's the case, at his size and his power, Same with Hampton, too, by the way. That's really interesting. Tyler Booker out of Alabama, powerful offensive lineman. I know Texans fans want some offensive line help, so I got you guys covered there. I don't think you'll see Josh Simmons test. I think the biggest thing for him, he's a very talented left tackle, had a fantastic year for Ohio State. The Rams could use offensive line help. It all makes sense. Is the medicals. Had a patellar tendon tear, which wasn't what was initially reported. Was actually reported as an ACL initially, and then kind of came out later. It was the torn patellar tendon. That's a big red flag, and the medical checks will be massive for Simmons. Another player, I've mentioned him before, and I'm going to mention him again here, and I think will test insanely well. Nick Emenwari, the safety from South Carolina. This allows the Ravens to have another chess piece and put Kyle Hamilton in the safety or put him back in the nickel or move him around and have some creativity there. I think this is going to be a fantastic tester who is 6'3", 225 and is going to run pry in the 4.4s. And that's dangerous combination. Donovan Jackson of Ohio State. I didn't really know what to do with the Lions. I think their overall roster's in pretty good shape. I didn't love the fits for Detroit at edge, which we'll get to here in a second. But I think replacing Kevin Zeller with Jackson is, not a bad idea either. Also, maybe a left tackle long term. He did a good job there at Ohio State. James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I think the questions for Pierce are, A, does he have the bend? Because he's very athletic. I think he's more straight line athletic, though. The big questions for Pierce are been some vague character concerns. Maybe this is more motivation focused. He had one technical arrest for speeding, which doesn't really matter. It does kind of sound like there are some questions about just the general character. Maybe we'll figure out what exactly is because I'm impressed by him athletically. I think it's a really good pass rusher who just might be a third down player. Excuse me. Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College. He is not nearly as big as Pierce is. He's only 6'2" and change and 248. I kind of get some Tack McKinley vibes here. He's got the ability to bend and get after the quarterback. After a down 2023, 16.5 sacks for BC this past season. Number 31, turned out the Chiefs need a lot of stuff after that Super Bowl, huh? Jihad Campbell. I think he's an off-ball linebacker, but he was an edge recruit coming out of high school. I think it was a 5-star edge rusher that Bama put him at off-ball linebacker, and it worked. I thought was really good in a lot of different areas. Times the coverage stuff isn't always what you needed, but I didn't think it was a liability at all. I think he's a fantastic athlete who can blitz, who can run stop, can cover. Not that dissimilar from a Frankie Luvo type of player. And then I'll take just kind of best available for me. That's Derek Harmon, the defense lineman out of Oregon, that kind of fills a need to replace Milton Williams. The defensive line class is interesting. You can take your pick between, assuming Mason Graham is your number one. You can argue for Derek Harmon and Kenneth Grant and Tyleik Williams and Walter Nolan. And someone's DT2 is going to be someone else's DT5. And that means someone's going to get value, at least on their own board. Who did I leave out of this NFL mock draft? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. And I'll mention some guys here as well. Marion Hampton out of North Carolina. I think I like him a lot. He's basically, he and Caleb Johnson are tied for RB2 for me. I just kind of want to see which one tests a bit better. Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State has had some round one buzz. Josh Connerly has had some round one buzz. Tyleik Williams is a run stopper, but I think he's going to test very well, which is also quite intriguing to me. Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. I want to see him shed some weight. I want to see him check in at 260, 65-ish, not the 280 plus he played at this past year, and kind of get more into the George Karlaftis range of draft prospects. And then one of my favorite guys is Jahdae Barron out of Texas. I have a first-round grade. I am higher on him than most. I know that. I think there are concerns, about the length. This might be sub 30-inch arms, which is going to be a real red flag for teams, and the pure top-end speed. But he's a playmaker. The NFL can make the same Brian Branch mistake that they did a couple years ago with Barron if they want.